live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Tales from the Forlorn Dopes. I am one of your hosts, Cybersmily.
Greetings, program. I am the other host, Wisdom, and we are happy to be here today. We've got Miss Magitek, Tracy Hearn, coming in to share her thoughts on the game. We are happy to have her as a guest. We'll
Hello, everybody.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to say.
Yes, hi, everybody. I am happy to be here. I'm excited to chat about all things cyberpunk and really anything we want to talk about. But yes, thanks for having me on.
Awesome. We appreciate you joining us. So the first thing we do is we have something that we call the full auto questionnaire. It's short, quick questions with short, quick answers. There are no wrong answers, but there is one right answer in this list. So,
Okay.
To start off, 2013, 2020, 2045, or 2077?
Oh, I'm biased because my favorite 2045.
Okay. Favorite cyberpunk role?
Rocker Boy.
Favorite piece of cyberware?
Why did I immediately think of This is not what I did not immediately think of Mr. Stids as that's when you think I'm going with that. We're going with that.
All right.
That's the first time anyone's ever given that answer. I'm happy to hear it.
Moving on. Favorite cyberpunk weapon?
The Danger Gal Sanru Hello Cutie from Cyberpunk, correct?
Is that from the new DLC?
It's from one of the actually no, I think it's in the original. Is it in the original core rulebook? Or maybe it is one of the newer, the Black Chrome DLCs.
Yeah.
It might be.
Okay. All right. Favorite cyberpunk red book?
Oh man, my bias is really coming out here. Probably Danger Gal Dossier.
How'd I know?
I mean, valid.
Least favorite cyberpunk book?
Ooh, my least favorite cyberpunk book. I'm looking at my shelf right now to see if there's one that
Had no comment on this question before.
Yeah.
Many times.
I'm sure the Artelser and crew. It's hard to pick a least favorite. So I abstain. No comment is my
No problem. Favorite Night City gang?
Probably the Philharmonic Vampires.
Ooh.
Favorite mega corporation?
Biotechnica.
Okay. Since you played Cyberpunk 2077, Pan Am, Judy, or Rogue?
Judy.
Okay. Carrie, River, or Goro?
Carrie.
Have you finished multiple endings or just one?
I finished one ending, but I watched the rest of them.
Got it.
So.
Do you have a preference on which one you kind of thought you'd like?
I still think the ending I got was my favorite, which was the Johnny takes over ending.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yep. I really like that ending a lot.
Driving away on the bus.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Very
Nice.
sad. I wept quite a few tears. So yeah.
Since you seen Edgerunners anime, Lucy, Rebecca, or Kiwi?
I love Lucy. Quite literally. Lucy is one of my favorite characters. So yeah,
Got it.
Lucy.
David, Main, or Pilar?
David.
Smasher or Faraday?
Oh, Smasher.
Okay. What is your favorite cyberpunk movie, anime, or TV series?
My favorite movie, I guess really the movie that got me into Cyberpunk, Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner. So I just have to go with that.
Favorite cyberpunk fictional character?
Favorite cyberpunk fictional character. Alt. I'd probably say Alt Cunningham.
Okay.
And yeah.
Gibson, Dick, Stevenson, or Sterling?
Ooh. Gibson.
Favorite cyberpunk novel?
I would probably say I did like I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's the first one that comes to mind. Neuromancer, I would say I did like that one a lot.
Good choice.
And it's an iconic one, so
Yeah.
can't go wrong with that.
Favorite cyberpunk comic or graphic novel, if any?
You know, I haven't dived too much into any cyberpunk comics or graphic novels. So
Okay.
hard to say.
Well, Derek is a person who can give you recommendations.
Give me some recs, yeah.
Last question is Shadowrun Cyberpunk.
Ooh, definitely cyberpunk.
I consider that a wrong answer, but I've been trumped
Interesting.
on that, yes. I'm the kind of guy who like doesn't want his peanut butter and his chocolate.
I
Want his
see.
chocolate and his peanut butter, right?
Yes.
My peas must not encroach on my potatoes.
Yep.
Crossing the stream is bad. So let's talk about your credits. So you contributed to Tales of the Red, Hope Reborn with the scenario Real Estate Rumble with Paris Aerosmith. You also contributed to Danger Gal Dossier with the Net 54 team. You're a streamer, a YouTuber, a crossplayer. You've done several Cyberpunk Red live plays, including here on Cybernation Uncensored. You've done some tutorials. You've done some playthroughs with 2077, and currently you're on the No Latency Cyberpunk Red live play. Did I miss any credits?
Yeah, you got it. That's pretty much it.
Awesome. All right, so that's our original spiel. Now we get into the hard-hitting questions. Derek, do you want to start us off?
Well, my dear, just 1 second. Things are out of order for me. Okay, there we go. So tell us a little bit more about your background in gaming and geekdom in general. Like, when did you get involved in gaming?
Yeah, so I have, like many, I'm sure, I've been gaming my whole life, and I have always been very much my favorite genres of games that have just always stuck with me is RPGs. My favorite game of all time is The Witcher 3, and you know, growing up, I loved more of the action adventure games like The Legend of Zelda. Ocarina of Time is my other favorite game of all time. So yeah, I've been into gaming for just a very long time, but I've always been more like the RPG side of things have always stuck with me. Divinity Original Sin 2 is another one that I really love. And I have been streaming and making content also for quite some time now. I think I started streaming on Twitch back in 2017 was when I really got into it. Back then, I actually played a lot of StarCraft. StarCraft was my big game, StarCraft 2. That was my main game, and I think where I got a lot of my audience at the time, because it's like one of those, and you'll see even like Cyberpunk, I think there's just some games that are just very niche and have a very like dedicated niche audience, and StarCraft was one of those, so I did that for a while. But just kind of grew out of it because it's a very hard game.
It's a very hard game.
Yes.
There's a lot that goes into StarCraft.
It truly, and I just got very worn out from it. So then I just switched to just playing games that I enjoy, like RPGs, like playing through games like The Witcher on stream. And then I also was playing tabletop games a lot with my friends. I played a lot of games offline, but like many others around like the 2020 pandemic time, when all stuff was just transitioning to online. Me and my friends, we were playing our tabletop games online. Then we decided to stream our games. So that I just naturally kind of transitioned to just streaming tabletop role-playing stuff around that time. I also was playing on other channels. I can't even remember when I first started playing with Rob on Cybernation Uncensored. I think it was around that time, 2020, 2021. So other channels I just started getting more involved with. And that is like where I'm at now. Is like I mostly just do tabletop role-playing games. I still play, other games, of course, but my content is mostly, revolves around everything related to tabletop role-playing games. So yeah, that's my little history.
Cool. So did you get
Nice.
into Cyberpunk Red after Cyberpunk 2077, or was it a bit before?
That was before. I had always, when I was getting into tabletop games, my start was like many with D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, and I got into that later in life, I would say. I didn't grow up playing Dungeons and Dragons. I got into it in my 20s. I'm now in my 30s, and it was, after a while, after playing D&D, I started exploring other tabletop role-playing games, and that's at the time it was, 2020, Cyberpunk 2020. I was very interested in it. I've never played it. I got the books, I read them, I was really into it, but I just never got into running it. But this was actually around the time, I think, when the Red Jumpstart kit was just releasing. So it was before Red fully came out. And so I was like, the Red Jumpstart kit was an easier entry point for me. So that's where I started. And that was at the time, yeah. Like then it was like, oh shit, CD Projekt Red is making Cyberpunk 2077, which is awesome because like The Witcher 3 is my favorite game and I already love CD Projekt Red. So when I knew they were making Cyberpunk, it was just like my world felt like it was just, they were just colliding. It was just like very natural for me to transition into like the Cyberpunk world after just loving, everything about The Witcher. And then I knew that CD Projekt Red was making 2077. So I was just very excited about it at the time. So, but that was kind of my start into the tabletop space, was like the Red Jumpstart kit.
Yeah, it seems like that most of the Cyberpunk fans of this next generation, compared to like me and Derek, who were a little long in the tooth, as it were, have really found out about the game after the computer game, which is nice because I can't speak for Derek, but I'm sure he will agree that it's great, especially for us old fans, to see that there is getting so much love for what I call the Pondsmith Cyberpunk universe, and seeing people so gung ho and really enjoying the world play in. So.
Yeah, we just like that the world. I just like that the world is still going on.
Yeah.
That all the work that and enjoyment that we put into it over the years is continuing on to the next generation, and it's gotten bigger than we ever would have dreamed possible. Like,
yeah, and
it went from. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, what's the other big tabletop game that I'm really into is Vampire the Masquerade and World of Darkness, and that has a similar story, I think, to Cyberpunk, where there is that gained huge popularity in like the 90s and late 80s, and there's like a newer generation for that now also, but there's still a lot of folks like I played this like way back in the day, and like it's great to see how it's like there's a younger so I don't know, for both Cyberpunk and World of Darkness, I really like that aspect of it a lot.
It's funny because in terms of rules, they're actually very similar, and they really hit their peak popularity at their original peak popularity at about the same time.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a lot of crossover. I know early interface magazines had like semi-official crossover material. The entire Ionis system like was basically a half-hearted attempt to include those supernatural elements in your cyberpunk game. Some of it vampire related, some of it more Cthulhu inspired. But even White Wolf magazine, I know they had articles to combine the two games.
Yeah. Yeah. They both are similar in genre too. Like they are very dark storytelling, dark future. Like it's so that you're right, there is a lot of crossover there, and those are the kinds of stories I'm more drawn to now. I feel like I'm past my D&D like adventuring era, and I'm now in just like I like these darker, grittier stories.
Yes. And that's why I don't want elves in my cyberpunk.
Yeah.
The anti-Shadowrun bias is very real with Will.
Yes.
Yeah. So, so how did our Talsorian approach you for contributing to Red?
Yeah, that's that story. So I was familiar with the folks at Art Talsorian for a while. I think just, being a content creator in the space, I had been just chatting with like Jay at the time and a lot of the crew there, just on like ways to collaborate in the future and things like that. And I think they just reached out to me randomly to write for Danger Gal dossier. And I think what sparked it was I had shared some stuff about I did some like fake news broadcasts for a couple of my games. For one of my Cyberpunk games, I did a fake Net54 broadcast. And then even for like my World of Darkness games, I always do like these fake news broadcasts for the games to just talk about what's going on in the world, how the players have affected the world, and all this stuff. And I think they saw my Net54 fake video. And that I've also, I made a joke on Twitter at the time about how, my journalism degree, which I went to college for like broadcast journalism. I was like, this is how my journalism degree is coming into use now. I'm making fake broadcasts for my tabletop games. And I think they saw that and they were like, oh, hey, you want to write for our new NPC book and write about Net54? And I was like, yes, that sounds great. So that's how I got onboarded to write specifically the Net54 NPC block for Danger Gal, and it was really cool. I got to, write about an actual canon character, Fiona Hayes, and then make a couple of new characters for that. So yeah, really enjoyed that. But that's how it all started.
I know in one of your streams you create a media character, and I really enjoyed watching you do that. So many times, especially with I guess Johnny Come Lately would be the best term, of the just glut of streamers who came in to do cyberpunk material in the wake of 2077. And they were all just like reading straight verbatim from the book. They had no insight. That's what I liked about your videos, is that you very much grasped it. You very much put your own understanding of what the game itself is into those videos. And I think that kind of sets you apart. So understand that that's appreciated. That's
great to hear, because, it's funny. I look back at the first couple of Cyberpunk Red videos that I made, and I'm like, oh man, I feel like I need to update those videos, because I was still feeling like I was new, and I did it like right when Red first came out and everything, and I was like, I look back on those, I'm like, those are bad. But I realized that at the time, I think there was some parts of it that it's like, hey, I think it resonated with folks, that I was just kind of like excited, passionate. I took, read the book and shared my own spin on it. So yeah.
Yeah. Another problem with the internet is everything.
Yeah, it's so true.
So speaking of Danger Gal dossier, so you did Net 54. Did you reference some of the older supplements like Rocker Boy and Live and Direct to help get you inspired on how Net 54 was portrayed, at least back in the 20s?
Yes, and they did send me some materials, prior to writing to get in that headspace and get that inspiration. So that did help. And I think it was, that too, where it's like there's an already established character. So that I was writing about. So I had to, there were some parameters and some guidelines that they had for that. And that, I think it was actually kind of cool to dig into that a little bit more. And then also, write up some new characters that like have a relation to Fiona Hayes. I think that was, it was all pretty cool, like the getting into it and getting, inspired to do this writing.
Okay. And for your other characters, did you take a look at the character art from Monster Fight Club and get inspired, or was it something that you kind of had a story begin with and kind of fit this story into these NPCs?
I had a story to begin with, and then that kind of molded the NPCs more, which I liked that process too, because it gave a bit more freedom to do what I wanted to do. So yeah, I really enjoyed that whole process.
Cool. Are there any tips you want to give our audience around how to use these characters, and the kind of underlying story that's been presented?
Yeah, so there is some, like, Fiona Hayes has some conspiracy around her, and if it's like the real Fiona Hayes, because she's been around for such a long time. And I think that there's some stuff that I wrote about Fiona Hayes that I think can also be left for GM interpretation. So feel free to like take Fiona Hayes as a character and take what's written about her, but you can also interpret how, her character however you want to. And then her two supporting NPCs, really, like, one is like, I don't want to say it's like very vanilla. I hate to, like, I was like, I wrote this, but it's very vanilla. Like, one is like good guy and one is like bad guy. So you can use those as like one that's more antagonistic and one that's more like there to help you, but he also has flaws. One of them, her cameraman and her bodyguard are the two that I wrote. And her cameraman is like, he's the one who's probably more helpful for players, but he also like loves Fiona to a fault. So he may like falter or do something like I totally, I did it for love kind of thing, and just like totally mess up. Meanwhile, the other guy, he's more in it for himself, and he'll like throw anybody under the bus. Like, it's nice to have those kinds of characters as a storyteller, as a GM, and like you can use them how you want to in your world. And it's like, okay, this one I'm going to use more antagonistic, this one I'm going to use more helpful, and that's kind of how I designed them.
Got it.
Fantastic. That mirrors my philosophy on the whole situation as well.
So before we move on off of that, I guess my question would be to you is the original Fiona Hayes dead, or did she fake her death?
Yes, I would say she's still around. That's my take on it.
Excellent.
But of course, as a GM, you can do whatever you want. And if you're like, this is a fake Fiona Hayes, or just in general, if she has copies, if she has duplicates, whatever is going on in Net 54, they want to keep their iconic Fiona Hayes. So,
yeah. I think you bring up an interesting point, which I think a lot of the 2077 people who are coming into the game, who are just so obsessed with the lore, just don't seem to understand that tabletop is sure that could happen, because
Yep.
every table is different
Yeah.
and the campaign can always be different. So, is she alive at your table? Maybe she is, maybe she isn't, right?
The funniest part about all the people coming from 2077 who are addicted to the lore is that they don't understand how little influence these people, these iconic characters, actually had on most people's games.
Yeah.
Like Johnny Silverhand never once appeared in any game I ran for the last 40, 30 years. It just none of those characters had any effect.
Yeah.
Like some of the CEOs of corporations, they were there in the background, but it's not like our characters would ever meet them under any circumstance. But no, they come in thinking that these characters were the like heroes of the game, and it's almost palpable watching their disappointment as they find out that that's not really what the games were about.
No. And when you're playing the games as like just as an edge runner in Night City, like yeah, maybe you know of Johnny Silverhand or Rogue, but it's like
Yeah,
that's
sure.
not,
I mean,
it's like you got your own shit to worry about as
Yeah.
like you're like whatever.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's something going on in the background, living in an entirely different freaking headspace. Like they're
Yeah.
not, you're not interacting with them.
Yeah.
You got your own shit to deal with, like you said.
Yeah, they're just one of the millions of stories a night.
Yep.
So your other credit, writing credit for Artel Sorian is Forlorn Hope, Hope Reborn. This book holds a very special place in our hearts, as you can
Yes.
tell by the title. Like this was definitely our most like we anticipated and waited for this book to come out. Not only for the obvious reason of our love of the original, but it brought back Benjamin Wright, or not Benjamin Wright,
Moss.
Will Moss as the writer.
Yes.
Sorry about that, Will.
No.
But your story in particular, your chapter of the book in particular, like I literally like a 12-year-old fangirl squeed when I saw it because you're taking on the fictional aspect of a friend of the show's, Seth Skorkowski.
Yes. Yes.
So, was there a directive from RTG to write about Jack Skorkowski?
Yes. So they did give us that character for this, which was it was cool, and we knew it was like a homage to Skorkowski and that. So like Hope Reborn was like a whole different process from Danger Gal, and it was like obviously it's more of each mission follows like a greater story book. So we're writing a mission right in the middle of this greater plot for the Forlorn Hope. So they gave us like some specific guidelines and direction for what they wanted for the story, and they were like, we want this to be more of a like we were able to add whatever kind of elements we wanted to the mission, but that was something that they had asked us to include, and he was like the real estate guy that was giving us the job kind of thing, so which was really fun. And I got to write a little bit of like his like dialogue in the mission and like his personality, which was kind of fun, and like even just writing things like writing his office and stuff like that was really fun. Actually, I enjoyed that a lot.
Have you ever interacted with Seth at all?
No, I have not actually,
we
which is a
should-
shame.
we should have invited him on for the show.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
should
yeah.
have. Like, I'm kind of kicking myself for not doing so now.
Yeah, just
I-
to give you a background,
I'm
we've
sure
had him
he
on.
would love to meet you. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's been on our
he
show
was
for twice so far, and
he was in our first guest.
yeah,
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
and he contributed to Wisdom's Interlock Unlimited,
Interlock and Limit.
which is kind of
I-
a rule set based off of Interlock Limited from Altar Saurian, and kind of like fixing some of the aspects of that game to be a little more in line. And it's a free,
Yeah, it
free game supplement too, so.
Interlock Unlimited kind of streamlines the 2020 rules and add stuff, remove stuff, basically just trying to cover everything as well as make the basic set itself universal. And he contributed to that in several different ways.
Back in
That
the
is
early
awesome.
2000s, right?
Yeah, I want to say 2006, 2007, somewhere around there. Before he, we used to talk all the time before he got published with his Hunansir novels. But yeah, we very much should have had him on
Wow,
just
that's
to
so
say
cool.
hi.
Yeah,
I'm sure he would have loved to have met you.
yeah, yeah. I'd love to know what he thinks about it all. That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think the last time we interviewed him, he mentioned that Artal Saurian kind of reached out to him to do it, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm busy at the time, but if you want to use that character, by all means."
That's great. Yeah.
So, how did you and Paris collaborate on this particular scenario?
Yeah. So I think it was actually nice to have a co-writer for this, because this was both of our first big dive into this kind of writing. So Paris did write also for Danger Gal. He wrote the Bozos, which he had a lot more NPCs than I did. He had like seven
Yeah,
NPCs
and
he
you
had to
only
write
had
or
3.
something,
Yeah.
and I only had 3. I was like, damn. I was like, good luck. But so he is also my GM for No Latency, and so we already
nice.
we talk all the time, and he is a good friend of mine. So when Jay had reached out to both of us and was like, is this something you'd be interested in, like co-writing? Because everybody else that they brought onto the Hope Reborn were already like established writers. Paris and I are the only two who we were creators in the cyberpunk space. We had written for one other thing that was a shorter project. So he was like, this is kind of a bigger project. So, because you both haven't written as much, maybe, it would be good to do like a co-writing project, which I was totally on board with, because it was a lot, and it was a lot more work than Danger Gal, and it was a lot more writing. And I appreciated having somebody else to bounce ideas off of for something like this. And I think I, in general, work better collaboratively than I do on my own. So I liked having a co-writer, but it really was like, how did we do it? Now that I think about it, like he would write some stuff. We would maybe take like a couple of sections and write different things. I was more focused on like the intros and some of the NPC interactions. He was focused more on, because he's more of the Cyberpunk GM than I am, so he was really focused on like the scenarios and like the instances where there might be combat or puzzles. That was like his big thing, and mine was more the storytelling aspect of it. So I think that was also a good collaboration for us. But yeah, I enjoyed having somebody to help, because it was definitely a bigger project for both of us. So it was nice to have a collaborator on that one.
I feel you on that. Some of my favorite projects have been collaborations, especially on the big stuff.
Yeah.
It's always nice to be able to bounce ideas, and if it's somebody you know fairly well, like your GM, that's just going to create a beautiful situation, and it worked out well for you.
Exactly. And so, yep, I really liked that. And I think overall, like, it was it was a great experience, and I also just feel like I learned a lot from that, and some of the back and forth when we would submit something, and Artel Sorian or Jay would come back with his feedback, and like learning what is like better, like what's going on for them, like how they see things, like Artel Sorian's perspective. I don't know. It was really cool to have that whole experience, and I really liked it.
Yeah, and I think collaboration, especially when you're writing for a shared world, right, versus your own world, you kind of need that feedback. So, and I'm sure Derek can comment on this as well. As like, since running my site, I create utilities for things that I'm going to use, and how I design them, and then posting them to the public and getting that feedback from others of like, well, this would be more useful if you did this, right? Is always is always valuable, because you're kind of like in a little bit of a silo or echo chamber in which you're voicing your ideas, but you don't know if they're good, or
Yep.
what direction you really should go with any particular idea.
Yeah, the vast majority of stuff I wrote for Datafortress, it was, especially in the earlier days, it was just me.
Yep.
And I never did know what was good or what was bad, and until other people started posting about it. So yeah, having collaboration, having feedback, that makes things so much better just on every angle.
Exactly. It really does.
Yeah, and just going with that scenario, the one thing I really loved about that game was that bouquet of grenades.
Yes.
And just the concept of the bozo. Now learning that Paris actually wrote the bozo section in Danger Gal, now I understand how you two kind of got into the bozo mentality.
Yes.
I think some people don't fully grasp of the quirkiness
Yes.
and insanity that gang can really bring out in people.
We both very subtly, maybe actually not so subtly, snuck the two factions that we wrote for Danger Gal into our mission. So we had the bozos written in as like one of the main antagonists that you're fighting, but I also made a Net 54. I think she was like an intern, or she's like a younger, like she's trying to like work her way up to be like a Fiona Hayes.
Yep.
And she's like an NPC that can help you in the mission. And the cool thing is, we wrote this mission, and as we're writing it, they got the art later after we've written it. So when we saw, as they're like releasing these like early like publication versions of the book, that they got art for the bouquet of flowers, and they got art of the Net 54 character that I wrote, and I was like, oh shit, like I didn't know that they were gonna add that kind of art into the book. And it was just cool to see the stuff that we wrote come to life via the art that they added into the book. So that was also
That's
just a cool
awesome.
thing. Yeah.
I love it when the universe works out like that.
Yeah.
Like you create this moment in your writing that is freaking awesome, but you don't know how well it's going to be received, and then it's received so well that you get this groovy piece of art.
Yeah, and out of this book, I think that
beautiful.
section has, in my opinion, a better, I would say, if not the best, or at least equal to the art for the whole book. I mean, I really like, especially that chase scene.
Yes.
That piece just has that flow of action that really captures that particular moment.
Yeah. So that I would agree. Like the art that they added in, I think really brings the mission to life, and it's just so cool to see it. So that was a proud moment for sure, seeing it all come to life.
I think, and I know from listening to your to your show that I think we can agree that universally the art for Red has just been fantastic across the board.
Yes.
Whereas with 2020, it's kind of hit or miss sometimes. Like some of the supplements definitely did not have the same quality that others did.
Yeah. We actually had Derek Quintanar on. Basically, he was the editor-in-chief for Alter Terrain for all of 2020. Yeah, all of 2020.
The entirety.
And he said that the worst supplement for him was Wild Side, which is a Fixer book. He's like, not for the reason you guys think. And I'm, why? And he's like, because of the artist I had to deal with on that book. Which I can understand that.
Yeah.
Like content-wise, it's one of the best books, but art, it's painful.
Yeah. And I think the art, like having those visuals for Red is really great. I love like the NPC book. It's just so great to just have an NPC art to go with the character. You can use it in your
100%.
games, like, and I'm a very visual storyteller, so I like to have visuals. And the fact that they have great visuals for Red is huge. And I agree that it is some of the best.
So moving on to another aspect of your life, which is live plays. What do you think are what are some of the major challenges you've had when getting a live play together?
Yes. Besides the obvious of the scheduling that everybody has, that is the biggest challenge of all. I think that doing like live stream TTRPGs, I guess some of the biggest challenges is wondering what the flow is, because when you're doing a home game or an offline game, you can go at whatever pace you want, and it doesn't really matter. If you make no progress in one sitting, like that's fine because you just come back next week or next month or whatever and keep going. But for a live stream, you recognize that we have an audience and we have to keep things going, and there is like a flow that you have to maintain, and that can be challenging because you want to give the player space to role play. You want to give space for really everything that you want in the game, but that can be a challenge. And as the GM, you're responsible for the pace, and so you have to be the one to like make the call of when to move on, and if you need to cut something and just throw things in. And for me, a lot of the Cyberpunk that I've run has been shorter series or one shots, at least on stream. And so that's the other, like, one shots can be very difficult because it's just hard to get everything in one episode, and they always end up running over. And so yes, to me, the number one issue is pacing for a live stream, and that can always be tough.
Yeah, so I actually a couple years ago joined live play on Hibernation Uncensored. Yeah, I'm just having so much technical issues with his setup. Basically, he raged quit. So I think we got 2 episodes out before my live play or so.
That's the number 2 issue. I would say is just general quality. I think another big thing is just tech and production. Because I think something that can make your live stream shine is getting a good overlay together, getting folks that have good camera and good mic. Like a good audio can go a long way too, and it's not easy for everybody to get that all set up. So that can be a struggle, but I think it does improve the quality of the stream if you're able to get all those things together. But easier said than done, because then you have some sort of technical issue, or if you're trying to run music, and maybe if you want to throw visual assets up, something goes wrong and it just becomes very difficult. And if you're also the GM.
Terabella Pondsmith reached out to us to review Shadow Scar for Cody.
Oh yeah.
And as part of that, she expressed interest in having us do a live stream play session. And I've never done a live play. I definitely don't have a like Will said, I've got a face for radio. And I don't know, I'm still interested in the idea. The logistics of it are proving to be something of a nightmare.
Yeah, it is a lot, honestly. And it can be a challenge. And then even just like the motivation to do it all the time can sometimes be hard too, because if it's like you're doing it and maybe it's like it's not picking up, and you're like, so why are we streaming? And then sometimes it can really be hard with, motivation as well. These are all things like that just happen, and that's just that's just part of it.
For us, we've done probably a dozen people are usually the most we get doing it live, but we do pick up some additional views when it actually gets which is of course like, why are we only doing it for 8 people? But we love those 8 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, they many times we will interface or interact directly with the people in the Twitch chat. We love talking Cyberpunk, and we love talking to Cyberpunk to as many people as possible.
Yeah. In my opinion, on even all live streams or podcasts or anything, I think the major key is the audio. Visuals, I think people are more lenient with the visuals, but if you can't get the audio right, people are going to tune out very quickly, because if that sound level is off, or it sounds like you're mumbling, or there's too much background noise and you can't really understand them, I think people are just going to be like, yep, move on to the next one.
Yeah, because a lot of people listen to this stuff in their cars, and
Yep, I was just about to say that. Like, that's when I think about my own, like 90% of the stuff like that I have on, I usually have while I'm cleaning or cooking dinner. Like, I'm not fully paying attention to it. So yeah, you're right. It is all about the audio, more so than the video.
So moving to the next question, what are your thoughts on what makes a good gaming group?
What makes a good gaming group? I will say, for me, I do think like this. I guess this is my my real talk, or my hard truth. I think playing with your friends that you're like close with is much better synergy than playing with people that you maybe have just met and haven't established a full like relationship with, because I've done both. If I've been asked to be on shows and run games, and I have had great times playing with people that I maybe have just met for the first time, or have only met a couple of times, and we haven't really played games together, anything like that. But I think the more successful groups is when you have friends that you've been playing with, or like some of your closest friends that you get to run a game with, because I think that if you have good chemistry with your friends and your fellow players, that shows to an audience. And now I'm talking like
Agreed.
more so, like streaming, because that is the success of the channel that I currently run, Magitek, which is where I run like my World of Darkness games, and some of our other Cyberpunk stuff. I think the reason our stuff shines is because we're all friends and we game outside. Like we play all sorts of games outside of live streaming our tabletop stuff. And so like when we're doing the tabletop stuff, it's just like friends gaming, and it's like that kind of chemistry is very apparent to people. So to me, honestly, that is a big thing. But you know, it doesn't totally discredit like getting a bunch of people together to like for the first time to play a game together. Sometimes you can find really good chemistry, or like it's like you meet people through tabletop gaming and you're like, hey, now we can be friends. Like that can eventually be built up. But I think it's much more likely to find success with people you already know.
Got it. What makes a good GM?
What makes a good GM? I would say somebody who is invested in the players and their stories, and is good with collaborating what they want for their world, also with the players and what they've built for their world. So that helps a lot. And if like I have something in my backstory and my GM like remembers it, and you know I rolled that I have 3 ex-lovers and they incorporate those ex-lovers somehow into the story, I think that makes a good GM. And you know, somebody who's also capable of just making a story flow and knowing like some of the challenges that I expressed earlier of, you know, having that pacing. If they're able to have good pacing, I think is also good.
One of my players,
I cannot disagree with any of that.
Yeah.
One of my players bringing up ex-lovers character pack. I think one of my players would not consider me a good GM for what I did to that particular NPC. But that's another story.
Yes.
Not all endings are happy. Sometimes that
True.
shit's got to get kind of
No,
dark.
they are not.
Very true.
So what makes a good Cyberpunk game?
This is something I've talked a bit about with one of my other friends on my channel who also is like super into Cyberpunk and he's like now more of a GM for Cyberpunk than I am, and we've talked about this. I think the focus on the individual stories, I think this is something for Cyberpunk, and I keep bringing back to World of Darkness also. It's like this with the street level play where it's like it's all about the individual stories of the players and their, you know, what they're going through. But I really love when it ties back to Night City. I really do. That's my thing about Cyberpunk. And I think this was something that was like a big theme even in like the show in Edgerunners, where the city has like this like impact on everybody, and having that impact and having whatever it is that Night City did to you, having that show in your story is one of my favorite aspects of Cyberpunk specifically. Just Night City, like what it does to you.
Nice.
That's what I like. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a challenge, especially for a GM, to make the city alive, right? And show the players that you are just one element of something else that is beyond them, which some players might not like, especially from a fantasy. If a person has like the D&D background or any fantasy game in which you are the hero and you're kind of prominent, but to understand that, you know, you're not the hero, or not necessarily the hero, but the legend of the game. You are just one aspect in the cogs there. I know we're almost at time because I know we only can have you for an hour. So is there any questions you have for us?
Yeah, I'm curious for you guys about what's your favorite aspects of Cyberpunk Red in general, because I know you have a lot of history, and I'm curious just what you guys like the most about Cyberpunk Red, because that's where my head is at 90% of the time.
You want to go first, Eric?
Yeah, I can go first. My favorite aspect of Red is the art. Um, I love the art for Red. I talk about it and promote it every chance I get. Uh, in addition to that, I just like that the franchise is continuing for the next generation. Um, I I'm just happy to see the game is still alive.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but yeah, the art just like every supplement that comes out, it blows me away. Um, yeah, there are a lot of smaller things um, that I really appreciate. I'm a 2020 guy through and through. So much so to the point that I mean I rewrote the rules just to fix everything that didn't work in my games.
Mm-hmm.
So rules wise, I'm still a 2020 guy. Uh, like world wise, I'm also still a 2020 guy. That's not to say
Mm-hmm.
I don't love Red. I do, but there are things about it that um, I struggle with. Uh, but the art never fails to impress me. Um, yeah, that is my favorite part of Red. And I know it sounds shallow, but like I said earlier, when you're looking at the 2020 books, the art is very hit or miss. In some books,
Mm-hmm.
it can be hit or miss in the same book. Like there are books where half the art is just phenomenal, and the other half you're just looking at like, how did this get published?
Yeah.
And you never come across that with any of the Red books. It's all top notch.
So for me, episodes 4 and 5 of Tales from the Forlorn Hope kind of calibrates or gives my opinion on a lot of Red, at least when it first published, right? So we did that back in 2021. So there wasn't too much of the actual content that's still being put out, especially with the DLCs. So what I like about Red, mechanic wise, I loved how they upgraded the rolls and the roll special abilities. I think that is key. I like how they sped up combat. Um, Granted, I still like the old system, but I definitely do appreciate the new system and how quick you can get through it and done. Net running, definitely improvement. The other thing I like about Red in general is that they're continuing to push out a DLC every month. They are pushing out 2 books a year.
Good DLC too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
good
Yeah.
DLCs.
Mm-hmm.
Valuable, valuable to your game.
Yep.
I think our
yeah, even
original,
from a 2020's perspective, the DLCs have been the majority of them have been valuable to me.
yeah. The other thing I like is that our Talsorian listens, which is
Yeah.
not all gaming companies do that, right?
Yeah.
So I remember pinging Jay in the early days. I think it was for the first Tales from the Red. I was like, okay, who did what adventure, right? Or Danger Gal, who wrote which sections, which they didn't list because you guys are all writers. But now, especially with Hope Reborn, where the credits for each adventure is being pushed towards a specific writer, so you know who's writing it. You know who did what piece of art, and that is great because then you can say, "Oh, I love this guy's art. I'm gonna go follow him. I'm gonna go to his Instagram or, buy prints or contribute to that artist or that writer." Right? I loved how they wrote this here. So let's see if they wrote anything else for any other system. Right? So I like that aspect, and it's granted it's not just Red; it's all Tolstoyan in general, um, and that's what I like
Crediting
seeing within Red that really wasn't there in 2020.
Crediting the art alongside each piece. That's another big one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I agree. I think they have been very, like, I love that they release so much free content, like just DLC all the time, and they are just very active within their community. They recognize people who create in the space. They do, they do all sorts of stuff like that, and I think it really makes a difference. And keeps people really passionate about it. So yeah, I would agree.
I mean, the perfect
I was gonna
example
say,
was in our first review. We basically had a critique, is a better word, of how generic the weapons were compared to the original 2020. However, with Black Hand's Guide, all the DLCs that are just producing so much cyberware, so much, weapons, because, being a 2020 person, we're definitely into the gun porn and gear porn. But, I think on the latest mayor's desk that was just broadcast, they mentioned that they have more unique type of weapons than 2020 does combined so far. So I think they heard us at least from a 2020 point of view, and they purposely worked their way to satisfy that kind of mindset of why people like 2020 over Red.
I feel like I have to clarify. When I was talking about the rules for Red earlier, I didn't mean that as a criticism as much as I come from a 2020 mindset where I like my rules to be complicated.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think one of the benefits of Red is that it's so much simpler, and it's so much easier for this newer generation to get into. Like the new philosophy of gaming is very much simplified systems over storytelling.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. I respect it. It's not my thing necessarily, but I love the fact that it helps bring new people in.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with that too. Yeah.
So we're at the hour, a little over the hour mark. So I'm going to finish up. What do you have coming up? Any projects, streams, appearances you want to promote?
Yeah. So all my big stuff is usually on my Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/MagiRPG, where I do all of my tabletop gaming with my friends. I'm doing a Warhammer 40k Wrath and Glory game, which we're playing. I'm also, outside of Cyberpunk and World of Darkness, my other big interest is Warhammer.
Another Dark Future game?
Yes, exactly. There's clearly a theme here. So doing some Warhammer stuff. That's my other thing where I'm trying to make like a bit more content in the Warhammer space, because I'm a big Warhammer fan also.
Man, that's funny because you don't sound like you're broke from spending all your money on Warhammer.
I know. Oh my gosh. I've somehow have kept a limit to what I like. I have my one army that I paint. My Sisters of Battle army, and that is it.
Are you saying you practice self-control?
Yes, surprisingly.
Oh my God, you are a superhero.
Which doesn't excuse. I still have spent a lot of money on Warhammer now, but it's like I very much am like, no, I just need to buy what I need. Like, but yes, so that's like my other expensive hobby that I have. So yes, that is my big thing, and yeah, that's where all of my stuff is over on my Twitch channel.
And
so
no latency.
Yes, and of course, No Latency. Oh my gosh. So No Latency is our podcast. So if you just search up No Latency podcast, it'll be the first thing that shows up. It's a Cyberpunk Red podcast. We release an episode every Wednesday, and they're a bit short. It's kind of nice because they're like 40-minute long episodes. So you don't need a lot of time to consume, it's like a weekly 40-minute bite of episodes. And I play a Medtech in that game, which is very fun. And that's available on all podcasting web formats, so Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of those good places.
Also, there's a YouTube channel for No Latency.
There is a YouTube channel, yes.
Check it out. Great. So, yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, Miss Magitek, aka
Yes.
Tracy Hearn. We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, we very much enjoyed having you here, and we extend the offer. You can stop by anytime. We love talking.
Hell yeah.
And you are welcome back.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And I love talking all things cyberpunk. So maybe I will.
Sounds like all things dark future.
All things dark future. So if you guys ever want to do like a whole dark future episode, we want to talk about, all of that, I'm happy to do that too. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We may reach out to you. Like I said, we're having some logistical nightmares trying to figure out how to do a live play. So if you don't mind, I may reach out to you for some advice on that.
Yes, feel free to. Happy to help out there as well.
And maybe we can coordinate a meet and greet with Seth Skorkowski.
Oh yes, that would also be amazing. Yeah.
So thanks so much. We're gonna do our little outro. I am Cybersmily. You can check out my site, cybersmily.net. I have quite a few utilities for Cyberpunk 2020, as well as Red. I just pushed out an update last week because I added the Cyberpunk Red Combat Zone Army Builder to be used. It's still kind of in beta, still a little bit buggy, but I am working on it and continuing to try to get that thing improved. So there have posted to it. You can also check me out on my Discord server as well as Cybernation Uncensored's Discord server. I'm also on our Talsorian server, Monster Fight Club, Cyberpunk, CDPR's Cyberpunk Discord, as well as a bunch of other, what are they called? West Marches servers. So I have my feelers out in all of Discord. Reddit, I'm on the Cyberpunk 2020, Cyberpunk Red, the Combat Zone, and I think one other Red one other Reddit that associated with Cyberpunk. I'm also on Blue Sky as Cybersmily, so I'm dipping my toe back into the whole social media. I am not on Twitter. I'm not on Instagram, and definitely not on X. Not on Facebook. Yeah, Twitter, X, whatever it is. So that's my spiel.
All right, I am Derek Bernier, alias Wisdom000. I run Datafortress2020.com. I am on Facebook. You can find me at both the Datafortress 2020 and the Cyberpunk 2020 Facebook groups, where I am an administrator, and I am a mod at the Cybernation Uncensored Facebook group. I am on most of the Cyberpunk pages on Reddit, and I lurk on most of them on Discord. Discord is a little bit too hyperactive for me to join in on most actively on most stuff. There's just too much going on. But I do enjoy the conversations that take place there. I am not on Instagram. I am not on X. Yeah, I think that about covers. I am on Blue Sky. But yeah,
we'd like to thank Rob Mulligan and Cybernation Uncensored for hosting us.
100%.
Thanks, Rob.
Yes, and
we'd again like to thank Tracy Hearn, Miss Magitek, for joining us today. You can catch all of her links on the visual graphic for the podcast right now. We will see you in 2 weeks on what's the next date we've got going on?
It's going to be May 7th.
May 7th. We will
Yes.
see you on the 7th.
And we have another
Um,
guest coming in, one
Ooh.
of the RTG crew.
Awesome.
So look forward to that. So thanks, everyone, and have a great night.
See ya.
Sleep well.
Cyber Nation Uncensored.